Look at that. Same week, same heat wave. One plant is dying. One plant is thriving. And here's the thing, your garden isn't failing. Your map is outdated. If you're still checking your USDA Hardiness Zone to plan your August garden, I need to stop you right there. That map only tells you one thing your coldest winter night. It tells you nothing about the 100-degree heat dome sitting over your backyard right now. For August, in zones 8 through 10, the number that actually matters is your AHS Heat Zone. That's days per year above 86 degrees. And most of you watching this are sitting in Heat Zone 9 or higher. That's 120, 150, sometimes over 200 days a year where your plants are basically fighting for their lives. Today, I'm showing you 7 crops that don't just survive that fight, they win it. And at the end, I'm giving you a Dusk-Timing secret that most gardening blogs are still getting backwards in 2026. I learned this the hard way, by the way. Lost almost my entire pepper bed back in 24 because I was doing everything by the book. Turns out the book was wrong. Let's get into it. Quick science, and I promise this is the only slow part of the video. The USDA map got revised in November 2023, and it shifted a lot of the country about a quarter zone warmer. But that map is measuring winter minimums. The AHS Heat Zone map counts something completely different. Actual heat stress days. That's the number that decides whether your tomatoes drop their flowers in July. And here's a myth I want to kill right now. Being in Zone 9 does not mean all heat-loving plants will do fine in your yard. Humidity and night temperature matter more than the zone number itself. 2 gardens in the same zone, one humid, one dry, can behave like completely different climates. Keep that in mind, because it's going to matter a lot by crop number 3. All right, 7 crops. Let's start with the one everybody thinks they already understand, thin. Think all okra handles August heat the same way. This one proves otherwise. Standard green potted varieties often start dropping flowers once temperatures climb past 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Jing Orange is different. It's a red potted heirloom out of the Yangtze Valley, bred for exactly this kind of humid, brutal heat. It stays tender at pod lengths where regular okra already turns woody, and the anthocyanins, that's the red pigment, actually work like a built-in UV shield. First time I grew this one, I honestly didn't expect much. Now it's the first thing I check every morning. Here's the net gain insight nobody talks about. Okra isn't even a C4 plant, despite what half of YouTube tells you. It survives heat through a deep taproot and a waxy cuticle that lets it keep pulling in CO2 during the cooler morning hours. Now, the number one mistake, and I've made this one myself, is watering overhead in late afternoon. Wet foliage overnight is the number one invitation for fungal disease, and most of that water evaporates before the plant can use it. Switch to deep drip before 7 a.m. and mulch heavy with straw. It cools the root zone noticeably, often several degrees below bare soil. Pro tip, I keep my harvest basket right in the shade by the back door. These pods cook fast once they're picked. And check every plant every 1 to 2 days during peak heat. One missed harvest window signals the plant to shift energy away from making new flowers. You'll feel like you're falling behind, but really you're just protecting next week's yield. Eggplant has a reputation for dropping blossoms in heat, and that's true for the wrong variety. Tung Long was selected in Pingtung, Taiwan for exactly the kind of humid, 90+ degree summers you're dealing with right now. Here's the pro tip that surprises everyone: stop pruning the suckers. On a tomato, you'd pinch those off. On this eggplant, those lateral branches are your August production engine. In most cases, leave them alone. In very humid Zone 9, think Houston or coastal Florida, a light, thin out of the worst airflow blockers is fine, but heavy pruning will generally cost you yield. I made that exact mistake my first year growing this. Thought I was helping the plant. I wasn't. Pair it with a living white clover mulch instead of straw here. It keeps the soil cooler without stealing the iron and manganese this plant burns through fast in heat. One more thing worth mentioning, a light kelp spray every couple weeks through August can noticeably reduce flower drop by supporting the plant's own heat response. Small habit, real difference by harvest time. This one answers a question I get constantly. Why are my pepper flowers falling off even though I'm watering enough? The answer is pollen sterility. Above 95 degrees, a lot of peppers simply can't pollinate. It's not a watering problem. It's biology shutting a door. Aji Charapita is a wild Amazonian pepper that actually needs heat and humidity to perform. And here's the twist. Night temperature matters more than daytime heat. If your nights stay above 75 degrees, even the toughest pepper struggles to set fruit. This one genuinely surprised me the first season I grew it. I didn't expect something this small to outperform peppers 3 times its size. Here's something worth knowing in side-by-side trials. Humid zone 9 areas like Houston or Charleston have consistently outperformed dry zone 9 areas like Phoenix. More heat isn't always better. The right heat is skip the pruning shears entirely on this one in August. Cut wounds plus heat is a direct invitation for fungal disease. If you're growing in containers, a top dress of biochar mixed with compost gives the root zone a real buffer of extra cooling. Cheap insurance against the worst afternoon heat. Most gardens slow down in August. Cowpeas are just getting started. They grow so fast in 90-degree plus soil that you can still reach a full harvest before your first frost. This variety fixes its own nitrogen, tolerates soils that would kill a bean plant, and its purple hulls make picking almost foolproof. You just look for the color change. Cowpeas are honestly the crop I recommend to anyone who feels behind for the season. They catch up fast. The number one mistake here is fertilizing with nitrogen while it's flowering. The plant senses that nitrogen and shuts down its own root nodules. Right when you want that partnership working hardest. Deep drip roughly twice a week, early morning, and let the plant do the rest. As a bonus, this crop is quietly rebuilding your soil while it feeds you. Fixing a meaningful amount of nitrogen underground that your next planting will benefit from. It's a harvest crop and a soil-building crop in one. Sweet potatoes play a completely different game. They're not fighting the heat directly. They're using it, storing energy underground while the vines shade themselves. Covington now makes up close to 90% of North Carolina's commercial crop for one reason: consistency. It holds up across volatile seasons better than the old standard, Beauregard. Here's the counterintuitive rule that trips people up every single August: stop feeding nitrogen after August 1st. Late nitrogen pushes the vine to keep growing leaves instead of bulking up the roots underneath. If you want bigger potatoes at harvest, you generally feed potassium, not nitrogen, from here on out. I didn't believe that rule myself at first, not until I saw the difference firsthand. Switch to subsurface drip instead of overhead watering too. It keeps the root zone evenly moist without encouraging the kind of shallow rooting that struggles once real heat sets in. If you're still trying to grow regular spinach in August, you're fighting the weather. This isn't spinach, it just looks like it. Malabar spinach actually needs heat above 80 degrees to grow well, and it tends to fail below 60 at night. It's the exact opposite of everything you know about leafy greens. The red-stemmed variety carries extra anthocyanins in its stems, which reflect heat and UV during peak afternoon sun. And here's the twist again. In humid climates, this crop tends to outperform the same variety grown in dry heat. Florida grows it with next to no extra irrigation. Phoenix usually needs afternoon misting to get a similar result. Mine usually ends up climbing an old tomato cage, one of the lowest maintenance crops I grow all August. Pinch it back every 2 weeks. If you let it run, it senses the shortening days and bolts straight to flower, and the leaf quality falls off a cliff. Remember, I told you one crop actually gets happier as the heat gets worse. Here it is. Amaranth is the only crop on this list using C4 photosynthesis, the same pathway corn and sugarcane use. That means it doesn't just tolerate heat, it often performs better as the temperature climbs past 90 degrees. Hopi Red Dye has been grown by the Hopi people in Arizona for generations, bred for exactly the kind of full sun desert heat that shuts everything else down. And it does just as well in humid Zone 9 gardens too. When you grow this, you're not just growing food, you're carrying on centuries of desert resilience in your own backyard. I let a patch run the full 8 weeks once and almost forgot about it. Turned out to be one of my best harvests all summer. Most people treat amaranth like a weed and pull it early. Don't. Older leaves, ones you let run past the 8-week mark, carry meaningfully higher nutrient density, both in protein and in micronutrients, than early cuts. Let it run the full August window. Here's the piece that changes everything, and it's the one thing almost every gardening blog still gets backwards. Most advice tells you to spray foliar feeds, kelp, seaweed, salicylic acid, in the morning. But here's the nuance most guides skip: a lot of foliar sprays because leaves scorch under direct afternoon sun, because droplets act like tiny lenses. The window is generally either dawn or, if your evening is dry and breezy, dusk. Personally, I've moved most of my August spraying to dusk. The plant does much of its heat recovery work overnight, and the leaves stay hydrated longer into the cool hours. Just don't spray at dusk on humid, still nights. That's an open door for fungal disease. And you don't need an expensive fertilizer program to make any of this work. It's timing and mulch, straw for okra, clover for eggplant, biochar for peppers. Physics and biology, not a magic bottle. Your garden isn't broken this month, and it isn't your fault. The old advice just wasn't built for the heat we're growing in now. 3 things you can do tomorrow morning: switch your watering to before 7 a.m., mulch anything that's bare soil, and pick one crop from this list to trial in a single bed. That pepper bed I told you about at the start, the one I lost back in 24. This year, using exactly what you just watched, it's the strongest it's looked in years. If this helped, that's exactly why I make these videos. Real trials, real mistakes, real data, no fluff. Drop your zip code, your AHS Heat Zone, and the one crop that's actually winning your garden right now. I'm building a 2026 heat resilient database out of these comments, and I'm reading every single one. See you in the next one.